Hello, welcome everyone. Thank you for coming today. I appreciate your interest in this discussion about uh, graduate school, attending courses towards a master's or a PhD in economics, and then how to succeed. It's one of those things that I certainly worried about when I was considering graduate study. And so I'm trying some different ideas out as a program director, just trying to connect with students, current students, potential students, having a bit of a community. And so thank you all for coming and thank you for watching. This is later. And so who I am, my name is Jay. I'm an associate professor here at Old Dominion University. I'm also the program director of the MA program that we have in economics. I was a Fulbright scholar to Chile in 2020. I've been the program director for 2 full years. This is my third year that I'm starting. I started as a full-time faculty member in 2012, so I've got 13 years in this, which is a job I really love. I enjoy it. I've had 27 peer-reviewed journal publications. My research is really focused in labor and education. I speak English and Spanish and French, so I'm conversational in Spanish and French too. I spend actually quite a bit of time in my free time working on that. And so just to sort of make an announcement, we've got a couple of upcoming events talking about the timeline of when and how to apply for graduate school in economics. That'll be on September 3rd. I'll be making announcements on LinkedIn and with my normal group of contacts on email. And then our biggest sort of event for the fall will be our virtual open house on October 21st at 12:30 Eastern time. And so I'll make announcements, but have that in mind if you'd like to come see us again. And so whether you're a prospective MA or PhD student, so what's the purpose? What are we trying to get to? Or newly admitted? This session is really for anyone trying to figure out how the process works once you are in a program, and then honestly, sort of what it feels like to be going through as a student. And so this is something that I was considering. Let me see, what have I got? Where's that? Polls. Oops. And I will relaunch it. I'll give it a moment. I'll see if we have technical issues. I have a poll here just to ask of our people who are attending. Are you considering an MH or an MA, PhD, or are you still deciding? So we've got one of two, and I do know, I think one of our attendees may be working on a graduate degree at the moment. And so it looks like the majority of people that we have are thinking about an MA. So this is what I've worked with most recently. As the program director, but I'm most familiar personally going through the PhD program. And so the MA is what we have most of the people here interested in doing. So it's good. So how is graduate school different? So if you are finishing your undergraduate studies, you are thinking about continuing on. How is it different from what you've already experienced? And so this was something that was weird for me as a student coming from undergraduate into graduate school. And so I think in economics, this is more the case than perhaps some of the other, I don't know, the other specialized degrees, but you no longer really just consume knowledge. And so it really becomes kind of a different lifestyle. Professors will start to, I personally do, I think other professors do as well. They start to view students more of colleagues, especially in PhD doctorate, right? So you're getting close. At the end of that degree, you'll have the same degree as what your teachers have. And so you are with the goal of generating some of the same output that the people who are teaching your classes do. It's a lifestyle, right? So you're no longer just like, I need to learn for the exam. It may feel that way, like I need to pass comprehensive exams. You're going to try to reach a point where you can generate either economic research or maybe you can generate high quality output. in terms of like interpreting economic data, interacting with economic data, interacting with shareholders. It's just a function of the kind of jobs that you might get if you don't get into academia. Um, we we tend to end up from economics and more highly represented in data analysis roles, consultative roles where we interpret numbers, offer, I can't think of the word. I want to say consulting, but I don't think that's the word I want to use. So offering advice based on quantitative output. And it's a process of learning how to juggle things simultaneously. And I'm going to come back to this, but it was when I started as an undergraduate, I never needed to have a calendar or have things scheduled. I started doing that. It is something I still do now. I have like this week, this month, this year, and I have things sort of scheduled out. And I still don't always do that the best. And so in terms of expectations, academically, what do um, what do you expect, or what do your instructors expect of you as a student or a potential student? And you need to be able to master technical content quickly, especially if you're thinking about mathematics or economic theory. And so I think that there's going to be an advantage, and we as instructors, as professors, are coming to terms with this, um, about how AI is going to shape the learning experience and how we teach, theory courses, and how to make sure that there's good in-depth understanding. But I think AI can help in this, using it as a tool. It's not necessarily something to replace. As I mentioned before, you're not necessarily going to be a producer. You're going to be a producer of knowledge eventually, not just a consumer, right? So you're not necessarily looking just for an exam or for like this semester. You're trying to figure out, well, like in 5 years, you actually will be using some of this content in your work. And frankly, this is something that you'll come back to, or that I come back to. This happened to me this last week, where I was upset. I was trying to work on something for a research project. It never stops, right? So this is, like, golly, I started graduate school 20 plus years ago. Having a real problem with like a data issue, and I just I couldn't figure it out. So I had to put it down and come back like a day later, and I think I've got it figured out. And that's okay. It's okay not to know everything. Um, Learning how, and this was something for me to figure out, learning how I can best get around those obstacles is important. And so it eventually turns into confidence, but not giving up, right? And so like I remember thinking about comprehensive exams my first year of my doctoral program. According to where you end up for a master's, you may still have comprehensive exams after your first year. They are no longer, not all programs have them, but boy, it looms, right? It's something that you think about. It's not just this exam, that like 6 months later, you're going to have to know this stuff again. And so it's a weird arc that you're on that first year. And so, oh, let me think here. Apologize. Our first question came in. I can go ahead and handle it now. And I think this is related to academic expectations. And so, what part of graduate school, when I was a student, was I most unsure about? And it sort of led like coursework, research, the job market, or something else. And so I think initially, so like it changes. So the first year I was wondering if I belong. And that's something that like if you've been accepted, you you belong, right? So like the program, the people who decide who takes the courses believes you can succeed. So day one, you should feel like you belong there. The first year, I think master's or PhD, it's coming to terms with, like I need to learn a lot of this material. I need to learn it quickly, trying to get used to the difference between an undergraduate and a graduate level, sort of like the graduate mindset, way of teaching. For me, in my doctoral program, it was research. I think this is what as much as I was nervous that first year about comprehensive exams, eventually it turned to like, how can I finish the dissertation? And I think that was the bigger concern that was overarching. And on some level, you just sort of start by doing. It seemed so weird and so difficult to come up with an idea that I was going to spend like a year or 2 years of my life working on. And eventually, I have more ideas than I have time now. And so I think that that's where like the conversations, and I'm going to encourage that shortly, that you have with your professors, with your classmates, you should start talking about research, just things you're interested in very early. Go talk to your professors in their offices, like, hey, how does this work? Hey, I know I need to complete a thesis, or I know that there's a final project the second year. What do you think I should be doing now? And you may not think that you get along, like some professors you naturally will like more than others, but starting to make those connections is important. And I would make those earlier than later. It's just part of the process. And professors understand this. Thank you. That's a good question. So, what surprises most students? And this was something, so like as an undergraduate and through high school, I admit that I don't know that I felt like I had to apply myself as much as what I should have, to be able to make relatively good grades and be successful in courses. But in graduate work, I felt like that was different. And in the first point that I have here, where I say you won't feel smart all the time, and that's normal, and that's okay, right? So like you were at a different level, and so typically the top end of the distribution sort of makes it to that next level, and that's okay, right? And you're going to be interacting with students that are better than what you've likely interacted with at your prior institution, your prior program. That will make you better, and it's normal. It's normal. You've changed schools oftentimes. It's a different group of instructors, and it takes time. It's okay. Some course may feel abstract or irrelevant. This happens a lot if you're in theory courses where you don't always see how it's going to be applied. And then suddenly it just sort of makes sense. I have stories about this where I realized like the second year of my PhD, the whole purpose of the first year. Like I was like, oh, this was it on some level. And people may disagree, but I really still kind of think the first year is to just trying to get you to where you can read an academic paper. That's the purpose. Now, is that exactly true? No, but I think that's lurking in me. Unstructured time, especially during the summer, if you're post, if you've already finished comprehensive exams, if you don't develop habits, and this is tough because this is something that will help you later, whether you're working, whether you are an academic, set yourself up with habits and having those goals to know that like when it gets to be June, you're like, well, I don't have courses. I'm like, well, here's what I'm doing to try to do it for the next year, right? So it's like many students, like you have these 2 years to try to set yourself up either for a PhD or for your career. And then time invested then can really help. And then what surprises students most, how much failure, and I'll highlight failure as a part of the research process. I failed this week. After 20 something published articles in the last year, I had, to me, it was a situation where I withdrew a paper from a journal. That had never happened before. It was something where a referee comment made me realize some things, and I didn't think I could continue with the project. And so like that to me, because I had already invested like a year of my time in the project, I was like, that to me seemed like failure. But that's okay. I learned a lesson from that. After however many years, how much time that I've put into things, you're going to fail. It's nothing to like be excited about on some level, but it's part of the process, and try to learn from it and persevere, right? To keep going. Okay. In dealing with feedback. And so sometimes it will feel personal, and not every academic does the best with this. So academic feedback can be blunt and personal, right? There's one or two exams I can definitely remember, PhD, where I did not do well, and it was just like a lot of red ink. I'd missed a lot. I didn't do very well. It wasn't anything that was personal. It reflected I just had not prepared. I didn't understand, and so I needed to prepare better. Um, I should try to separate myself from my ideas. So if someone says, that's not necessarily a good research idea, if that's, I don't understand why you would think that given what's happened in the course, try to figure out why, like someone else's point of view might be different. That doesn't necessarily mean that you can't be successful, that they're saying that you aren't doing well. It's like, well, perhaps that idea isn't always the best. And on some level, like this whole idea, and so revise and resubmit, this is terminology from submitting articles to a journal. Um, it's good. Like learning to receive feedback and try to improve is a real skill in life. I don't know that I always do the best with it now, even now, after all these years, but I try, right? And this is something we can get better at. Right. And so just remember, if there's something that comes up as I'm going through, if you have a question, feel free to mention it in the chat. Okay, the first year gauntlet, the first year process. Um, so in the MA, this is often course focused. So I do think that the thesis slash final project at the MA and ODU, we have a final project. It comes later. I recommend to students that maybe like the second semester, you start to think about it a little bit, but really it's a second year thing to worry about. And especially in your econometrics or your empirical classes to try to talk about, and here it is, relationships, right? Understanding. So like, is there something that you might be interested in? What your long-term goals are? What kind of projects might be related to that? But at the same time, that second year is going to come fast. And so get through your courses, think about second year a little bit later. First year, I would still probably be thinking about, honestly, what am I going to be doing over the summer? Can I get an internship in the summer? Like, be thinking about that early in the first year. PhD, think about comprehensive exams. So you got your core courses that you're going to have comprehensive exams in. Study, you get your exams back, don't put them on a shelf. Study the exams when you get feedback. This sounds weird because otherwise, like 6 weeks later, if it's in the fall, 6 months later, you're going to be trying to study those same exams to get ready for comprehensive exams. So focus on those core courses. Don't think about jobs. Don't think about dissertations. Worry about comprehensive exams, doing as well as you can in your courses. Burnout is common. I mean, I remember feeling this way a lot, especially my first year. After that, it became more of a feeling like a marathon, just like something you had to continue doing to succeed. The first year, there was all like there was some tense, I just felt tense a lot because I knew that comprehensive exams were looming. But other people you'll be around are going through the same thing. There will be students in like more advanced cohorts that will have gone through the same thing. There are people you can talk to that have had similar experiences. And so another person came through, another question. And so I think this is a relatively good question. So what helped me most during my toughest semester? And so what helped me most during my toughest semester? So I still do this. And so maybe this is not the best attribute in life. And so, but it's still good. So like I knew walking in the first week of classes that it was a 16-week semester. And so, it ebbs and flows as the semester goes on. I think keeping in mind that even though you may have a lot to do, at least when you're on an academic schedule, you'll know 2 months, right? Or it's like, oh, this is February, I've got spring break. Spring break, I'll at least have a couple of days. I may need to go ahead and work fine. At finals, I'll have more time, 2 months, right? So just keep in mind that whatever you have, it's still relatively short term. That always helped me. And sometimes I think this, I like to run a lot, distance running. I picked this up in graduate school. I think that helped me too in terms of mindset. Right? Sometimes you just keep going. And I think that's part of why sometimes you keep running is the same reason why you kind of keep going in the middle of a semester. Good question. Thank you. So the advisor relationship. So whether you're in an MA program or whether you're in a PhD program, eventually you're going to have to choose advisors. You're going to have to choose a committee, people to help you with some kind of project. And so I do think that fit and who you get along with and or who has interests more closely aligned with yours in terms of research matters more than someone who is better known. And so this was a question for a PhD, like if you could get a well-known researcher, does that help you more in the job market? At the end of the day, I think who can help you most? Who do you think that you can work the best with is probably more important. You know, a done project, a done dissertation is the best one. Communicate regularly and clearly. If there was one thing that I could really reach out to students and say, you know, I wish that this would improve, just check in. Um, you know, I'm still working. I didn't have a chance to get to it this week. I'm going to deliver you something in 2 weeks. Just not saying anything, I think, is worse than, you know, saying each week, write an email. This is what I've done. This is what I'm going to do. Try to set things up that are structured. Try to have regular meetings. This is the one thing, right? So whether you're just in a class that you're not doing very well in, that you know, like, hey, like try to communicate with the professor when there are things that comes up, working on a project, communicate regularly and clearly. This is good in life too. An advisor is a guide and not a mind reader. You need to talk about where you think the problems are. I'm guilty of this. And I was guilty of this as a graduate student too, right? Sometimes you just assume that people are understanding where your weaknesses are and what they need to do. It's not always the case, right? And I think this comes back to that communication. So imposter syndrome is normal. Everyone feels behind. Everyone. I mean, honestly, I still do. It's a different feeling being a full-time faculty member. But yeah, I can remember this as a graduate student. I always felt like I should be like doing more. I should have more done. Um, you know, get the stuff done that you have to, trying to figure out what really is the thing, like the deadlines that matter might make a difference. And this is something that you have to feel out on your own. Focusing on growth and not perfection. This is something in life too. I think that's very important. Like you will not always be perfect. Certainly if you're doing research, when you're trying to add or trying to do something new. It's just very close to do. You're trying to create things that are new, and perfection's not really possible, but growth and trying to be better is. And that's one thing that's just good about graduate school. It helps you in it. Trying to celebrate small wins. You survived midterms, did well in a presentation. You know, be excited when something happens that you can be excited about, right? And then turn back and work on the things that need to get done. Graduate school is not necessarily solitude. I agree this. And so according to the culture of the program that you attend, the the relationships between students can be different. That's something that I can talk about more if someone has individual questions. I don't like to talk about individual schools. I've just heard over time. Build community. and share notes, right? So hopefully you end up in a program where it's more congenial between students, and you should try to study with people, go to department events, try to co-author. My two co-authors that I've worked with the most, I met in graduate school. We sat in the same classes, and they have just continued to work with me, even when I haven't maybe always been the best co-author, but they've been good friends, and I think we've done some good work through the years. Um, Isolation is tough. I had some problems with this. Like there was one semester in particular, I didn't have a lot of people to study with, and it made a difference in my ability. It hurts creativity and motivation. It's not always the best, right? And so reach out, talk to your advisors, talk to the people you know, try to work with other people you're around. Okay, good. No more questions. So tips for staying reasonably sane. I put in reasonably sane, um, and succeeding. Okay, time management. Um, Oof, looky there. I wonder if that was a Freudian slip on purpose. So weekly planning can mean the difference in survival. I mean, now I'll admit I had never used a calendar before. I just sort of remembered when I was supposed to be places. Started writing down days of the week when I had meetings, when I had deadlines. I mean, my list is right here. You want to know of the stuff that I need to get done the next few days. Block time for reading and writing. And so sometimes it's like Friday from 1 to 3 is relatively slower. Block time for TA or RA work. Avoid perfectionism. Notice, I think I did this on purpose. Can I say that I did it on purpose? That I misspelled perfectionism wrong? Um, I mean, I still do think you should try to spell things correctly, but know that there's going to be mistakes. Try to avoid the ones you can. Professional development. And so most departments that have graduate study in economics will also have seminar series. Highly recommend attending those. They often happen on Friday afternoons. It's normally a time when there aren't classes scheduled. And so you don't necessarily have to be on campus, but you should go. If for no other reason than to see what your job might look like someday and to try to understand what academic research looks like. Like who presents well, who doesn't present well, what did they do? What are the characteristics of those who seem to be doing better than others? Are there certain things that good presenters do or that good research looks like? I I've got a welcome week thing in less than a month for our incoming fall cohort. And I'm going to tell them for those in the MA program to start your CV the first year. Anything like teaching, papers, presentations, get it into LaTeX and have it started. Start using LaTeX. Know that you need to have documents in LaTeX. It makes things look professional. Personally, when people apply for jobs like at our department, when I see presentations, when I see working papers that aren't in LaTeX, it makes me, well, anyway, you just know. I'll just leave it at that. So there's always a little judgment anyway. But I do use Word or something. And you're going to learn Stata or R. I still use Stata. I'm a little bit older. Our program, the ODU, uses R. It's got to focus on R. There's no excuses. At this point, I think R is expected. Stata might be the optional. And you should set up an ePortfolio/website. It's going to be needed on the job market if you're a PhD. I started doing this like my first year of the PhD program. I did a small amounts of work on it regularly during my whole time. Or you could call it an ePortfolio. It's a way to show the work that you have. I think it makes a resume come alive. If anyone's really interested, you can always email me. I can share more information about how to set these up and some other resources. Mental health and stress. So stress and anxiety are common. You will probably feel this if for no other reason. I know that we have some international students who are here today with us. You're going to be away from home. It's a different country. English may not be your first language. And so it can be isolating. And there's just stress in classes and trying to make it through. There are lots of resources on at universities in terms of counseling. Talk to the people you work with, have scheduled breaks. Just know that this is not all you, right? Lots of people do this. This happened to me, and I was studying in my home country. Okay. Be careful with powering through. Uh, burn out can last longer than the guilt of, taking the afternoon out, taking an afternoon off. So if you need an afternoon off, you know it, you can always come back and work the next day. I personally have problems on Friday afternoons. I've always have problems on Friday afternoons. I can work Saturday and Sunday, but Friday afternoon, I have real productivity problems. And so I often just kick off Friday afternoon, and I'll come back and work another day. Funding. And so this is something that's very important. By the way, I know, especially for international students, some of you may not be able to attend if you don't receive funding. So when you get an offer, if and when you get an offer, make sure and read the terms for, is it renewable? How long will it last? Is it guaranteed for the full length of your term of study, or is it, renewable each semester? How many people tend to receive funding for small amounts of time? Just how does the process work? MA students, just know that funding is often less coming in as an MA student than a PhD. And so my guess is that it's difficult. So my guess, it is not, you will not be getting rich on a graduate assistantship. I would say that as an MA student or a PhD student. Some schools can offer more than others. Some semesters, some schools will have money, others do not. I encourage speaking to numerous universities. And this is me, because I'm eventually hoping that some of you might be interested in ODU, but it's just smart. I mean, I applied to numerous universities when I was looking at a master's degree, when I was looking at a PhD, and you should too. If you decide to work, so if you're an international student in the United States, it's likely not possible, at least during the school year. You're not supposed to work. During the summer, you can get internships and work, those sorts of things. Just know that side gigs or outside work have time costs. I was guilty of this. As soon as I had enough hours where I could teach as a part-time instructor, I started picking up classes, which probably, almost certainly delayed my dissertation getting finished. And, that 1 year of additional income was probably almost certainly more than the income I made from teaching those individual classes. So just know there are trade-offs. If you're here, you're probably studying economics, or you have before. There are opportunity costs when you start doing things other than working on your coursework, working on your thesis/dissertation. But the funding thing is very important. Get good. Close to the end. So I just wanted to see if there were questions here. So looking ahead, the job market starts early. And so if you're an MA program, start networking, thinking about options your first year. This is assuming that it's a 2-year MA program, which I still believe is the norm. You should be thinking that first year, what do I want in year 2? Because you're going to be applying in year 2, you're going to need to start thinking about options year 1. PhD, first year, comprehensive exams, don't worry about anything else would be my personal recommendation. Start thinking about research agenda year 2. Whether you want to do academia, think tank, government, or industry, think about this, because this is like where you want to be at the end of your 2 years as an MA, at the end of your 4 to 5 years in a PhD. The experiences that you choose and the options that you choose along the way will make a difference in where you are set up at the end of your education and your experience in graduate school. So starts early. This is why I'm saying LaTeX CV, start your ePortfolio. I encourage, we've hit a point where LinkedIn, I think, is good. If you're here, likely you found out about us on LinkedIn. Well, that's one of the main ways that we communicate with potential students and alumni. And so just think about, how can I reach who I need to speak with to find a job? Or how do I reach graduate school, right? Where do I need to be? How do I get there? Initial survival, which is like your first year, can turn into success, right? So graduate school really is not. And so this is something that hopefully is a theme that you sensed along the way. It is not really a sprint. This is more about endurance. On some level, refusing to give up leads to finished dissertations. Refusing to give up and continuing to work can lead to finished thesis, can lead to a finished class project, to finish your master's degree. Be good to yourself when you need it. Ask for help when you need it. And you're really not alone at the end of it. There are other students who have gone through the same thing that you have. They've passed comps. And if you're accepted to a program, you have credentials, you belong there. You can succeed. It's a matter of putting in the time and effort, right? The school that you are with, or that you will be with, believes in you, and you can do. So, with that said, I'll say follow us if you don't already. If there are any questions, I'll sort of, you can type them in the chat here. But this was the end of the prepared content that I had. And so hopefully there was something of value in there that would be of use. I appreciate your attention, your interest in the ODU program in economics. But at the end of the day, if you're interested in studying economics, quite frankly, we've got something in common. And so that's why it's fun. I have really enjoyed that since I have become the program director. I've gotten to talk to people from all over who are interested in the same subject that I care a lot about. I spent a lot of years studying this, and now I still do, sort of, because I still get to teach the classes. And so follow us. Feel free to reach out to me anytime if you have questions about any of the stuff that we have here today. I'll go ahead and stop the recording, and then I'll break and see if anyone wants to hang around and we can visit.